G'day legends, James Greenshields from Emergent Leaders Foundation here. Lots of people have asked me why I concentrate so heavily on healing as part of leadership. Well, it's a fairly self-evident question if you think about it. But as a leader, what I've found is if I don't have the ability to understand healing within myself, then I keep getting confronted by glass ceilings. One of the biggest ones when I was a young lieutenant in the military, I didn't realise that I had this self-worth issue, particularly that I'm not enough. And so what I would do is I would construct at a subconscious level a whole heap of stuff that would happen, playing out a behavioural pattern where I would find that things would fall apart. And lots of people scratched their head about this because they saw the potential that I had, and I'd actualise that potential very regularly, but then I'd trip myself up. And that tripping up was a glass ceiling caused by an actual subconscious psychological wound called I'm not enough, one of the 3 psychological wounds that a person has. Now, as a leader, when I become aware of that, I can do something about it, which therefore means the glass ceiling dissolves and I can actually actualise so much more of my potential. So let's bring this to the healing space. And I've talked a lot about healing lately. One of the issues that we face is what you fixate on becomes your reality. It's something that I teach in the harmonic leadership program. There's a thing called, one of the hermetic principles called the law of polarity. The law of polarity demonstrates that all is the same but to varying degrees. In other words, a pole will occur around something which has come to fruition, because the formation of one thing will always attract its opposite. So without black, you won't get white. Without white, you won't get black. And if you actually look at the numerology of the 2 words, black and white, spell them out, and then go to each of their letters corresponding to the number that they are in the alphabet, and then add them up and see what, and then you compress them and see what number you get. In essence, what we'll find is both the same. So law of polarity teaches us this, which is why in some symbolic representations or symbols, pictures, etc., particularly in the Freemasonry where I was dancing around, you'll notice a checkerboard. And the checkerboard is the board of duality. And what they're actually demonstrating is that the 2 opposites actually can come together. Why is that important to understand about healing? Well, the thing about if you fixate on healing, you're actually fixating on the wound. And I witnessed so many healers come to me and ask for assistance moving forward, becoming better healers, becoming better people, becoming better leaders, which is a really admirable thing to actually realize within themselves that they want to take that step. But one of the first things I have to help them with is this understanding that they quite regularly are locked into this fixation on healing. And if you fixate on healing, you are actually fixating on the wound, because you keep believing that you always need to do this healing. Now, I've mentioned before, as a society, we've become trauma bonded. We are now linked emotionally to trauma. Before, it was all in the shadow, it was covered up. We went through the Second World War, incredible amount of trauma came back with over, near on 40% of men in working class Australia serving in that conflict, seeing incredible things, let alone the women who also went. But a population that actually, it morphed to deal with the trauma that came back because it was so much exposed. And that then permeated into the DNA of all our generations plus. And so, subsequently there was so much that was caught up in all of us. And so much healing that actually had to go on, because a lot of the time they didn't know how to do it. Even after the Vietnam veterans coming back, a lot of the Vietnam veterans came back with an incredible amount of trauma with them, but they didn't understand what to do. My father was one of them. And my father turned to God, his God. He was an Anglican priest, so that's what he used to do that. But at the same time, he died from cancer, for crying out loud. What do we know cancer is? Metabolization of suppressed anger and a number of other things. And if you look at my father, he had a tendency to be able to splinter because he wasn't able to deal with the suppression of anger, sadness, fear, shame, and guilt. And that metabolized into a suite of dysfunctions within his body, which in the end caused death. So the point here is that I'm not saying there's no such thing as trauma or the need to heal or the wound. But if I actually fixate on that, then that's all I will ever see. So it's like Captain America in the Marvel movies when Tony Stark says, "What you going to do?" And he just does. Captain America doesn't know what to do without the war. Captain America doesn't actually know what to do without the adversary. If you focus on the healing, you won't know what to do without the wound. And so coming to this place where I realize it's a phase of a progression of movement of myself. Call it my soul in an incarnated form, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But when you see that the healing process is a stage that you will move through in life, you don't get fixated on the wound anymore. You realize the wound occurred within a construct of a gift being given to you by something bigger. And so therefore the process of what we would call healing is the process to relieve one's cells of dissonance within my field to actually get a deeper understanding of what the meaning is. Hit by roadside bomb, 23rd of April 2007 in the shadow of the Ziggurat of Ur, 6,500-year-old temple to the moon god in southern Iraq. An incident which almost resulted in me taking my own life. The thing is, if I put that and I put that aspect of myself and overlay my life, I can see the necessity of all these threads of my life coming together at that one exact point that needed the explosion to break all the paradigms loose for me to conduct that incredible healing that I've gone through in my life. And from the wound itself, all these lessons and these additional skills that have come on to actually shape the pattern of the rest of my life. And so I am deeply grateful. And in fact, I've said it many times before, that moment in time on the 23rd of April, fourth best day of my life, categorically, hands down. Why? Because it is now understood in a construct of the overall part of my life. And so I can truly be grateful for the experience. Yes, that does take work. But if you fixate on the wound, you won't know what to do without the wound. And this is what harmonic leadership is actually all about. In my humble opinion, 85% of all adverse mental conditions, including depression and anxiety, are actual personal leadership issues. And I witness in a lot of organizations, because we do a lot of work in leadership in organizations, I witness an incredibly low level of personal mental health, which is actually an incredible low level of personal leadership, taking ownership of my own mental health and actually then taking steps forward to actually increase this. And yes, it has been enabled by a culture which are so guilt-ridden and shame-ridden around wounds that we've become trauma-bonded. So it's okay, instead of going, cool, well, how about we do something about it? We've got more psychiatrists and psychologists in the world than we've ever had before, and yet rates are continually escalating. And this comes back to this point about how we address things. So, if you fixate on something, it becomes the genesis of the rest of your life, of your reality. It becomes the genesis of your future from this moment right through until the time where you choose to dissolve the fixation. If you fixate on not becoming like your father, who do you become like? If you fixate on the wound, what do you constantly see? However, when you let that go into a bigger construct, then what can happen is you gain the lesson, you integrate the lesson, and you start living it, which then brings you to a whole new place in your life. Trust that's been worth it. I know I touched on a lot of stuff there, but if you can get just at least 30% of what I just laid down, you'll literally change your life. And not only that, you will lead others out of the shit. And that's the key. Don't focus on the mud. Focus on leading yourself, which will allow others to follow. Trust it's been worth it. Big love.